Welcome everybody to this session is called Following with the Nautical Theme of Orientation or Navigating the Professional Job Search Market. And I'm excited that you're going to have a chance to hear from a couple of people who have done that just in the past few years. So really a lot of this time is going to be a chance for you all to hear from a panel, some folks who've been there and done a lot of this. And I'm really glad that you'll have a chance to do that. So yeah. So we're going to jump into things pretty quickly here. And I'm going to plan on asking a few questions to get things rolling. And then if you're an incoming MBA or MSF, I hope that you take advantage of this and ask some questions to people who have been in your shoes and have done some good things. And you can see from this slide some of the awesome things that they're doing now. So what I think we'll go ahead and do first is go ahead and have everybody do some quick introductions. So Cecile, I think you're the senior ranking member here, so maybe I'll let you kind of start, if you don't mind, and introduce yourself and talk maybe a little bit about who you are and what you're currently doing, and then we'll move along.
Yes, I'm a product manager, and before MBA program, I was actually working in project management, sales, and marketing in very traditional healthcare industry. And but most of my job I did was my previous roles. The skill sets and knowledge are very transferable to my current role as a product manager in software development. So in my current role, I was helping the company prioritize different projects and identify the most valuable features we want to develop in the software development. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. Probably I can talk about that more in later. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Cecile. Let's see, Daniel, you want to go next?
Sure. So I'm in a unique position of having done both the MSF and the MBA program. I moved here in 2014, did the MSF program, then started off with Deloitte right after that, first in the evaluation side, moved to M&A consulting. Did that for about 3 years and came back for my MBA this time. So I like to joke that there are more people who've gone to the moon than have come to Owen twice. So that's my claim to fame. And I just graduated in May this year and started with Deutsche Bank in their investment banking division as of last Monday. So, yeah.
Right. I think that claim might be true. I think there have been more people on the moon. So thanks for joining us as you're in the midst of your getting started with work. We appreciate that.
Sure, absolutely.
All right. I'll move down this slide here, and Eduardo, or do you go by Eddie?
Yeah, I go by Eddie for sure.
Great. I'll let
Eddie Gulina here. MSF class of 2019, so graduated just last year. I started at Black Arch Partners here in Charlotte in investment banking. I'm entering my second year now, so it's been about a year in the job, and at Black Arch we do middle market M&A. We do middle market M&A mostly, especially on the sell side. So that's the kind of work that we do at Black Arch. And before Owen, I was at Erskine College in South Carolina, where I played NCAA soccer for 4 years and earned a bachelor's in accounting. So that's before that. I mean, I'm originally from Italy, so that was my first transition to the U.S. And then continued to Owen and now here in Charlotte.
Great, thank you, Eddie. Appreciate your joining us. And Fitz.
Hey, what's up? Fitz Ignacio. I'm originally from the Philippines. I just graduated alongside Danny, so MBA 2020. I'm scheduled to start with T-Mobile under their Leaders to Executive program, which is basically a rotational program which adds you to the pipeline of the C-suite. I don't start till October because of everything that's going on, so TBD what my first rotation is going to look like. Prior to school, I was working in a family business back in Manila. We were real estate developers, and I headed sales and marketing.
Awesome. Thank you, Fitz. Appreciate it. All right. So, first question I have relates to those of you who joined us for one of the earlier workshops we did might be familiar with this transition curve that is up on the slide now. Panelists, I don't think we talked about this when you all went through all of this, but this is a curve that we talk about, and we relate it to the job search, we relate it to life in general and adjusting to things, how you go through periods where at first everything is great, and a lot of that's just the optimism of not knowing what you're getting yourself into, and over time you face some challenge, and sometimes there's that crisis moment, and hopefully you continue to persevere through it and move to a point where you're learning, where you can get a greater sense of meaning and you have that informed optimism. I know it doesn't look the same for everybody, but my first question I was going to ask you all is, what was it like for you all transitioning to Owen? And for some of you all, this was kind of the first experience in the US. So what was that like for you, and what was some of the support or resources that helped you, or that maybe you wish you would have leveraged during that time? And I'll let any of our panelists that want to hop in on that go ahead.
I could start. So it was weird and insane at the same time, because the US as a tourist versus the US as a resident are two completely different things. Like, you did not have to act or interact with the outside world when you were a tourist, just stay in your little bubble. So moving here was strange for me in the beginning. I used a lot of resources that the school had. So the CMC, ISBP helped me a lot. But it was mostly my classmates. Like, if you make a lot of friends with the people who are from the US, through osmosis, you sort of get the culture and you're actually living it day after day. And what actually also helped as well was clubs, because you could get leadership positions in clubs fairly easy if you want to step up. Same with the student government. So having that practice of leading people in the US prior to your internship and actual job roles helps a lot.
Thank you.
I can go next. Yeah, I mean, it's being. I mean, it's only natural when you start that you kind of tend to look for security being in a new environment, and you'd often see people or individuals coming from a certain background. I did that when I'm equally at fault to that. When I started, being European, I kind of automatically kind of got attracted more towards the European crowd. Unlucky, or in a way lucky for me, there were only 2 of us or 3 of us. So, you kind of have to branch out after the first week. Otherwise you pretty much kill each other. But I mean, you have to kind of actively seek out contact with other people. I mean, you have to also see it from an American perspective, right? You are, they hardly have anything common with you. It is as weird for them as it is for you, right? I mean, they don't know your culture as little as you know theirs, but at the same time, you're in their environment. So it's probably up to an incoming student to kind of make that first step and make that first approach to a person. And I mean, on honesty, people are there to make friends. So I would say just, step out of your shell and approach people. Most of them are friendly, and the ones who are not, you really don't want to know them, because they're, at the end of the day, they'll be standing alone come graduation. So, I mean, I would just say, yes, stay, keep your, I understand that people want to have something familiar and kind of stay within familiar crowds that they know, but I would highly recommend stepping out of your comfort zone and getting to know people who are not only in your program, but also in other programs, which, I mean, having done the MSF and the MBA both, I remember back in the MSF days, a lot of people used to complain about how MSFs and MBAs wouldn't, do things together. And that is something that has changed drastically. I mean, Fitz used to spend more time. Fitz was better at that than I was, where he would, spent time with a lot of what was that, marketing students, and but I mean that's again, you know, kudos to Fitz for that, but you have to, at the end of the day, step out of your comfort zone and just go and meet people, and people are willing to meet you.
I can talk about my experience. Can you all hear about my voices?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, I switched to another computer. I think my previous one like hasn't been shut down for a long time. So I think I think the transition for me was pretty tough because first that was my experience. That was my first time like to be in the United States, and second, that was my first experience really living in a culture, you know, it's very, very different from my previous experience. Even though I think before I came to United States, I spent 10 months in New Zealand. However, I think there are two very big challenges for me. First, my English was pretty bad. You know, I don't know whether you understand how Chinese, like the language structure, but I think you know, many of you who are coming from a very different language background, I think will find it is very struggling for you to express yourself. I personally, I think that was one of the biggest challenges that I have, because it really affects the level of my confidence. And second challenger was like the level of confidence, because like everything was very new. So compared to your counterparts, I'm talking about the domestic students, like Americans, so they're just living their, you know, their native environment. So everything like probably like very, very easy for them. The difficult level will maybe like 2 times or 3 times for me, and consider giving the language barrier, I think that probably sometimes can exaggerate it to, you know, 10 times. I'm not joking. So I think this is, I think those like adapting to those like challenges like really make, you know, a person who were very confident in my own country become less confident, especially I think the second year when you are facing you know, time to find a full-time, and you also in the middle of your you know, career switch. I think those people will find it's very challenging. But I'm not here to discourage you, because this is the very beginning of your you know, your MBA program. But I think keep that in mind. Just be aware of that those are the things you're going to face in the future. And I think if I looking back, something that I want to do differently is that when I joined the program, if I can, you know, be very objective to the challenges that I just mentioned going ahead. And I think just be prepared for facing all those, you know, setbacks, and also recognize that you are still a very smart and you know, wonderful person. I think that's could be very useful, and probably will help me you know, save some like time struggling in the middle of my MBA program. So yeah, that was and some valuable resources that I think I used in this process is similar to some of you know, the alumni mentioned. I think building some strong bonds with your classmates will be very valuable. I think especially find some people you're very you trust very much, and then you can basically talk about your personal experience with them. You know, 2 to 3 people will be sufficient enough. Second, I think utilize all the resources around you, you know, LDP, Career Center, and even the medical, student medical center. There are a few doctors are very, you know, very helpful. They have they have a much sympathy for international students. And sometimes you, I think, for example, if you feel a lot of attention, and you probably can do our like yoga massage over there, or just talk to the doctors over there will be very useful.
Right. Thank you, Cecile. Eddie, did you want to add anything on this?
Yeah, I can chime in real quick, but all the panelists covered everything pretty extensively. So I'll just say that my experience was a little bit different, because I was coming from a U.S. undergraduate institution. So I was already in the U.S. prior to Owen, and it was only being an MSF. I was only there for a year, so my transition was a little bit different. I guess a little bit easier than maybe other people. But I will say that when I first transitioned to the U.S. This was back 6 or 7 years ago. I wish I had the resources that that Owen offers, and the support and the the international community. I moved to a very small place, to a very small school in South Carolina. So I guess that is to say that we're all very fortunate to be at Owen, and the support and international community at Owen is definitely something to be proud of, and that provides just so many opportunities to be integrated and to kind of be successful during your time at Owen.
Great, thank you, Eddie. Appreciate it. So Daniel, I remember you mentioning that you had time was short on your side. Did you need to get going here shortly? If so, do we mind seeing if anybody else has any questions for you before you take off?
Sure. Yeah, I probably have to bounce in about 5 minutes, but sure.
Okay. Real quick before we see if anybody has any questions specific to Daniel, but something I will say is if we can, with our questions today, we're going to try to, these are all great folks, and I hope you get a chance to get to know some of them and a lot of their classmates and other alums as well. But for this time, we're going to try to really focus our questions on things that you think might be useful for like a broader audience. So if it's something that's like really specific and individual to yourself, please reach out and find a time to tag them kind of more one-on-one. But yeah, does anybody have a question for Daniel before he takes off?
Hey, Brooke, I actually posted a question in the chat for Daniel.
Yes, I noticed that. Yeah, Daniel, do you want to address that? I was asking a little bit about, and maybe we can make this question a little bit broader. For sponsorship, if we can start with Daniel and maybe afterwards kind of switch to others, what does it look like for sponsorship?
I mean, it is, it's a tricky question, right? I'm by no means a lawyer, so I can't comment from what's going to happen in the coming year. But I mean, for my situation alone, it was tricky to say the least, because I remember going through recruiting, and even the people who were working at the time, point in case, there's a alum, Moria, who back when I was recruiting was working at UBS in investment banking. And by the time I came around to get offer time, through recruiting, she was already halfway through. She was gone. She'd moved to, she'd already moved to Canada. So the visa situation is constantly changing. I know, for example, a lot of banks have already clamped down on giving out visas for incoming internationals. UBS, for example, wouldn't hire internationals anymore. And I mean, as far as I know, Deutsche still is. But I mean, I don't want to offend anyone's political views here, but I think in this case, the best case scenario would be for internationals would be a administration change at the end of the year, because things are just getting clamped down. And I mean, you have to also see it from a company's perspective that, yeah, they'll give out offers, but at the end of the day, if you can't start, what good is that offer? And that's what's going on right now, where there's just so much, misunderstanding and so much ambiguity in the entire situation, where no one knows what's going on. I mean, I was supposed to start in July, but that got moved to October, and that got moved back to August, just because the situation is so fluid and it changes constantly. So I mean, that's something that you would have to tackle as you go through the entire process. But as of now, I know, I mean, look, it's not easy, and it's not easy to start with, and it's not easier being an international. It's even tougher then, right? So you have to put in the extra time and effort, but I mean, there's still firms out there, as far as I know, who are going to be hiring internationals, whether it's from a banking perspective or from a consulting perspective. And I think the CMC has a pretty expansive list about all the firms who in the past have hired internationals. And so, I mean, just ask for that list and go through it, because it's no use wasting your time with firms who are just, from onset, just say that they're not going to hire internationals. Wells Fargo, for example, they just won't hire internationals. So you don't even need to talk to them and waste your time with them. But I mean, it is what it is. You just have to try and make the best out of it.
Yeah, it's there's not like a simple, easy, straightforward answer with that, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, and the thing is, it's constantly changing, right? I mean, you have one set of information this week, a different set next week, and it is so fluid. I mean, the one thing that I can just highly recommend is staying on top of it and being in touch with ISSS. I mean, I used to email them once every 2 or 3 weeks just to make sure, that I was still compliant with everything. And because once you get out of compliance, or once something happens, it's a slippery slope.
And something, just to even kind of highlight a further example of that, Daniel, did you get a sense of, with your recruiting process, that your background and, you mentioned you're from Europe. Deutsche Bank is in Europe. Do you think that helped in the process? Do you think?
Not at all. That got shut down really fast. I mean, I actually did in the first few meetings. You're like, "Why do you want to join Deutsche Bank?" And I was like, "I'm German." They're like, "That's not a reason." So, I mean, yeah, what you've done is more important than where you're from. I mean, where you're from is going to be an impediment, but it's not. It's not something that you cannot overcome. Point in case of everyone who's on this call. You'll have to put in more work than a person who is from the US, and that is just fact. I started flying out to New York when I started in August of 2018. I started flying out to New York every Thursday evening, and I would spend Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, put my classes in a way that I would only have classes on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and I would fly back on Tuesday morning, take my classes Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and fly back to New York to just go meet people. And I mean, yeah, does it add up? Is it expensive? Yeah, but does it work out and do you get a job at the end of the day? Yeah. If you're willing to put in the legwork, I mean, you'll get something out of it at the end. But I mean, at least for the first 2 mods, you can probably kiss your social life goodbye, and you can probably, put things on halt. But once you come out on the other side, then you can have even more fun.
Yeah. Thank you, Daniel.
Sure.
And we'll keep going, because I think this is a good topic. And Daniel, if you need to hop off, we completely understand.
Yeah, sure. If anyone has any questions, or feel free to shoot me a LinkedIn message, or Brooks. I mean, you're more than welcome to use my email address.
Thank you.
Take it from there.
Thanks,
bro.
Yep. Thank you. Good to see you.
Thanks, everyone.
Good to see you.
Bye, Danny.
I
Bye,
I can share like my experience about finding a job with employers who is willing to sponsor. When I graduated, I got like 2 offers. One is from my this collaboration one, the company. I got this role because I focus on very niche market. They were hiring a product manager focused on China market. So at that time, I was very, I think I look at my own strengths and looking for opportunity that could like, make myself stand out as very competitive talent. So I didn't know that whether they sponsor, but I use this as approach. And so I think for this like role, they just like will be very willing to sponsor me just because they're looking for this specific role who speak Chinese, but also can communicate very fluently in English and with the management team in the United States. And the other role the other job offer that I got is from a medical device company. Again, I think I was, I think to summarize my experience is that really look at your own strengths and, you know, spend some time looking for a role that can maximize your previous experience. For the second offer, it's a medical devices company. So they hired me because I had experience in healthcare industry. The second reason is because there was I didn't know that before I applied for the job, but when I was in the last round interview and visit on site, I found there are a Owen alumni who graduated I think in 2010. And I think I approached to her very politely and I gave her a very good impression, even though I didn't get the original role that I applied for, but because I was consistently showing my passion for this role and also my positive, interaction with them, so they offered me a different role. But I think again that company didn't really mention they sponsor international students. But I checked on my visa job. So there's a website you can actually, validate the company that you are looking for, whether they sponsor or not from their history data. So I checked that they historically they sponsor one person, I think a few years ago. So I knew that there was the chances that they can sponsor me. So I think I won't encourage you to apply for jobs that are less likely to sponsor international students, but those I think maybe like spend 20% or 30% of your time searching for those type of companies who have sponsor people before, but it's not like those bigger names like Microsoft or Amazon who sponsor tons of people, because for those big name companies, yes, they do sponsor a lot of the people, but also the competition is very high. On the other hand, I think those companies, they might sponsor people in fewer chances, but once you target to the right market, I think there's a high chance for you as an individual. I think the chance will be very high. So again, to summarize my experience, I think you have to be very smart on job looking. I think that those rules or experience that works for other people might doesn't apply for you. So you have to really look at what you're really good about and what's your core competencies, and look at the job market as well and find the niche market for yourself.
Eddie or Fitz, do either of you want to speak to this?
Yeah. So I did not go through. I didn't go through this because fortunately I'm a holder for dual citizenship. But as I was going through my job search with all the other internationals, we were all targeting tech, and like what Cecile said, the Microsofts of the world, the Amazons of the world, like they're all known for sponsoring a lot of students. However, these are the same companies that everyone's applying to. So all of us might be the best of the best coming from the countries where we all came from, but now we're competing with the best of the best from all over the world in the MBA world. Plus we're competing with the best of the best with all the local students who don't need sponsorship as well. So it becomes a lot more competitive, and you slowly start to realize that everyone is capable. Everyone has a skill set. Now you have to figure out ways to differentiate yourself. And I know this is going to be repeated over and over again. It's so ingrained in my head, and I did not actually appreciate this in the very beginning of my program, but networking is extremely, extremely important. That's the reason why Danny, who was here earlier, flew to New York every weekend. That's the reason why I had like probably 10 calls every week. Like I would talk to anybody and everybody who would listen to me from big tech or from telecom or from anywhere on the West Coast where I wanted to end up in, just so they could hear me out, just so they could hear my story, just so they could vouch for me, just so they could be advocates for me as well. So all of that collective effort eventually reaches the recruiters. Now, if they're looking at the list of, let's say, 5 awesome MBAs who are very capable, and 2 or 3 of them stands out because these people have like recommendations from actual employees or alumni or people that you work with, then you would stand out easily. Like I realized that having the right skill set, the right education gets you a seat at the table, but your networking and interaction allows you to stay. So that's what helps you get your job at the very end of the day. So yeah, that's how I differentiated myself, and I'm sure everyone else is, did that at one point.
Yeah, I guess I can chime in real quick and maybe offer a little bit of a different perspective on the visa issue. From an MSF perspective, and especially for banking jobs, the given that most like analyst programs out there are only 2-year programs, the making sure that the recruiter or like the people that you're talking to know that you have the STEM extension that applies to your visa, to your case. Make sure they know that, because it is very common that they will not be familiar with some of the more specific immigration rules and some of the cases like the STEM OPT extension. So making sure they're aware of that, and making sure they know that you are able and allowed to work for up to 2-3 years depending on your case. I think that's pretty critical. Especially then I can also speak to my own experience in banking. You will have more conversations if you do decide to stay longer than 2 years, and whatever your next destination will be after your 2 years, there's going to have to be other conversations about H-1B and all that. But as for like an entry-level position in banking, I don't see a terrible disadvantage being international. It does, in my opinion, it does offer some variety for places that value that and value a little bit of a different background and different skill set than most other people. So that was just my experience, and I know it highly depends on on a case-by-case basis, but this is going to offer some positive, some positive news and positive kind of reinforcement that it is very possible, and especially for banking jobs and especially for analyst positions, it is definitely possible. And I would consider yourself to be at the same level as any other U.S. candidate.
And Eddie, I think you brought up a really good point, which is this concept of if you have to be able to speak to things like OPT STEM options and H-1B and be able to describe that, because it'd be great if every employer and recruiter you talk to, every alum knows all about that. That's not the case, at least from my experience. Occasionally you'll get people who do, but you think you really have to be ready to advocate for yourself and to be able to speak to that. So that's an excellent point. Eddie, if you don't mind, I was just looking at the chat box. We had a question. This one looks specific to you. What are things critical to folks in banking as they look at it from an experience perspective, and especially if someone doesn't have a finance background? What do you think is really important? And Anshul, hop in if you've got anything else to add on that.
Thank you so much, Brooke, for reading my question out loud. So to give a bit of background, this is my short-term goal, essentially, to have a career in finance and strategy. But one big learning curve I see personally is the fact that I do not come from a finance background, and I do not have a very rigorous finance portfolio. So for someone coming from a tech background and an international person, what do you think I should do to put myself in a competitive advantage? Now, I understand that being international, the odds, the sponsorship really is a big kill over here. But still, like from my own personal perspective, what things can I do to make myself more competitive?
Yeah, so yeah, I guess that's a really good question, and I think you know, I can speak to, you know, to my experience as an analyst, but I am in some way involved in the recruiting process at my firm at Black Arch, so I get to see also part of the associate recruiting process as well. So I will say that, you know, coming out of an MBA, coming out of a very strong MBA program like Vandy, like a finance background is not terribly important. You'll see folks that, you know, have extensive finance background, but you also see a lot of folks that, you know, come from like a variety of fields and a variety of backgrounds. To me, like the number one key differentiator is being able to craft a story and being able to craft a like compelling story for you to be for you to position yourself to be successful. And you know, it's very much a function of like what you want to do exactly, and you know where you want to be. But you know, I think it really sticks out like when you can articulate a story that that is clear, that is compelling, that is, you know, that makes sense, of like why you want to do banking, why you want to be in a specific industry, why you want to be in a specific city. I think that all kind of resonates with recruiters a lot. And you know, I can speak to Black Arch a little bit, but you know, we hire from a ton of backgrounds. We hire a lot of veterans. We hire a lot of people that have nothing to do with finance at all, coming out of very strong MBA programs like Vandy. So I will say that you know, just be able to defend why you want to be in banking and be able to articulate that story. I think is critical.
I might can share some of my experience as well, even though I'm not like in the banking, like, but I think that like the story is always the same. So in my first, after my first year, like for my internship, I actually end up working at the Citibank for their HR leadership program. And I have no HR like experience. And however, I think the reason that I got the offer is because I think Eddie said, I think first I tell a good story about yourself. Like I think it covers like why you want to do this and why you should get this job. Like I think the employers understand that, you know, from a MBA students, you are coming here to either advance your career or going to have a career switch. So they have the tolerance of having talent from a different background. So I think, you know, you should be confident about that. You are capable of doing any job that you want. The only thing that I think is to ask yourself, like, do you really like the job and are you really passionate about this? Or even, you know, if it's fine if you don't like this job in the future, you just want to try this out, that's totally okay, because that's why you are here. But I think, you know, some advice I would give you is that I think through the downsides of taking this job. Like, you know, what are the risks associated with taking this job? For example, I'm just assuming this like really made up this thing. For example, I know banking is very high rewarding job, like they have very high salary. Is this the reason that you want this job? Then you have to think through the downside of taking this job. You know, it's a very high pressure job, and are you going to, like, will you really like this after a year or 2 years? Can you work for 100 hours every week? If that's the answer, if you're having yes to those answers, then take it, that's fine. But you know, after graduation and then work for a year, and what I really wish somebody can tell me is that you know, MBA is really a great chance to look about to reflect what you really want to do in the next 5 or 10 years at least, you know. So I would probably again, I think I'm not encouraging you to either take anything or not take anything. I think it's really your decision to make those decisions, but really think about like what really matters to you, and then focus on that. And that probably will be my advices.
Well, thank you so much. That's very well said. Thanks for your insights, Cecile and Eduardo. I'll keep that in mind. I'll just keep an open mind towards other perspectives of this job search. Thank you.
Welcome.
Are there other questions that you all have? Well, while you're thinking, oh, Megan, did you have something?
Yeah, I was going to follow up a little bit, just thinking, because I know we don't have a lot of time left. Danny mentioned before he hopped off about his flights to New York. And we all know that that is not going to look that way this year, right? So just hearing from Fitz and Cecile and Eddie on what, because we all know that in-person networking is so important, we won't have the opportunity for that. Can you guys speak to maybe anything you've seen so far that you have appreciated from students that shows kind of awareness and cognizance of COVID, and how you could imagine maybe you would have done it in a virtual setting if you were in the same seat that these folks are now?
Yeah, I could start. So this actually has started happening already, and people have been reaching out who are looking to recruit in the program that I'm in right now. Own the virtual space. So what was hard for me as an international in the first few months that I was in the US was that every time a company would visit on campus, and you would have happy hours after, or you would have like cocktails, there would always be a circle of people. Like there would be one dude from the company and like 6 Owen students. Now, in the American culture, small talk is very prevalent. Like it's very easy for them. And like people cut in, people have conversations. But coming from Asia, I would always wait my turn. I would always be the last one to speak. I would always only speak when I'm spoken to. And that was hard for me in the very beginning. But now realizing that with COVID, everything is virtual, that learning curve might not even be a factor. Own the online space, reach out on LinkedIn, send them emails, and in that way, you wouldn't be in awkward circles networking with other American students who are, you know, maybe more confident. But then since you're having it one-on-one and the conversations are one-on-one, it's going to be more meaningful. Like 15 minutes would go a very, very long way. So do that, set as much meetings as you can, and just own the online space.
Hey, Fitz and Cecile, can you both talk to sort of the Asian perspective, also along the same lines, Fitz, of waiting your turn is sort of this came up in a earlier session where the person was writing something and they had an overwhelming amount of time spent on apologizing or sort of putting themselves aside. And can you speak to the difference between that and America and how uncomfortable it is for an Asian person to sort of put themselves out there?
I would say it was very difficult because I think Jerry said, like, I think I had that mindset, like I own for every action that I should have. For example, I'm easily to apologize for what I shouldn't apologize, or I will feel bad if I'm not doing what I expect to be the best. And that was, I would say it's more about something that you should overcome from your own side. I think maybe reading some books really help. Like reading some books is very helpful for me. I think it's some of the books that I read, for example, self-compassion, which is not a thing in my culture, I would say, because people like, for example, my parents always criticize me as a sign of encouraging me to do something for the best. But as a person, as a human being, I don't think that's the best way to do, even to yourself. So I think give yourself like more compassion about for example, hey, this is very difficult for you as an international student to come to this country and behave like that, which is totally different from what you have behaved before. I think acknowledge about that, and just don't have so much burden on your shoulder. I think that will probably give you a easier starting point. And from more technical side, I think everybody want to behave. I think stand out in that process. So I think find the approach that fits to your personality or fits to your skill set or background the most, probably will be a very smart approach. For example, like I am not a shy person, so I don't mind to just like cut off some people sometimes. Still, but I still have that Asian like a consciousness, so I will also wait for my turns. So I will switch between those two different modes. Also, sometimes I feel small, individual conversation might fit me better. So I will prepare. I will do my homework. For example, look at the people's profile, LinkedIn profile, find something similarity or something interesting to start a conversation. So I can start our individual conversation with that person when I see, time fits or there's opportunity for that. And always prepare 6 seconds, elevator talk. I remember that when I was in the 40 fellow, before my MBA program, I wanted to apply for a role post job, and one of the very senior vice president gave a speech during the meeting, and then after the meeting, when we were in the career fair, I specifically targeted on this person, and I prepared for my 6 seconds elevator pitch. And when I found the opportunity, I approached to her and I highlighted my experience and my desire to apply for this job, and I handled my resume to her. And then after that, I just got an interview from that company. I think those I think finding those little things, I think will help you find the best strategy for yourself. So I might not I might not directly answer the question, but that's, I think, a very I think what I want to share is that I think there are a lot of the barriers you will have giving certain cultural background and experience, but having a positive, again, attitude and understand where you're from and find the best strategy for yourself. I think that's what I probably will give you as an advice.
Yeah, I'll be quick with mine. I learned how to compartmentalize. So having my past experience, I still respect my parents. I don't call them by my first names just because it's culturally not okay. But then when I first moved here, I couldn't even call Brooke and Jerry by their first names just because it wasn't ingrained in me. But here we are now. So I was able to understand that I moved to the US. I have to adjust to their culture. I need to adapt to the culture in the US. And if confidence is the key, if treating people like human beings and disregarding the hierarchy that I'm so used to back in the day is the key to that, then I should. It's my job as an MBA student to work twice as hard to adjust to the culture, because this is the culture that I want to succeed in, not just professionally and personally. So I can't hold on to what I was used to doing back then. So yeah, but then again, goes back to when I'm with my parents, I still fold.
Great. Thank you both on that. Before, I've got one brief last question, but before that, Eddie, did you have anything that you wanted to add about what networking looks like done in this extremely virtual setting?
Yeah, I mean, I'll try to keep it quick, but I think, it doesn't change dramatically. I mean, it does change that, it's you're not going to be able to meet people in person. But, you know, I would just remember that, you know, the goal of networking is for you to, and for other people especially, to get to know you on a more personal level. So whatever means you're going to use, whether it's on the phone, whether it's Zoom or whatever other platform, I would just keep that in mind and say, hey, the goal of the conversation that I'm having is for this person to get to know me better. So you know, I would definitely keep that in mind, especially as also as you move, you know, as you move along in the recruiting process, and you know, you'll find yourself, you know, doing virtual interviews, and you know, the purpose of those interviews is to like literally get to know candidates, and so whether it's done in person or virtually, I think that's the end goal. So make sure that you you know, I would just make sure that, you know, you keep that in mind as the ultimate goal of any conversation that you have. So just make sure that comes out, you know, throughout the conversation, and that you're able to kind of position yourself as, you know, and then, you know, kind of highlight some of your qualities, some of your traits, just like you would in person.
Great. All right, so we're getting close to our time to wrap up. So I have one last brief question I'd love to hear from each of our panelists before we wrap up. So here's my last question. For each of you, could you talk a little bit about, like, you've been through this Owen experience now. If you could look back in retrospect, what are some things you wish you could kind of go back and tell yourself if you were kind of sitting in the place that a lot of these students are? What do you wish you knew? Was there anything you wish you'd kind of approach differently or look at differently? So yeah, what would you tell yourself?
Well, I could start, and Danny touched on this a bit earlier. The sooner you accept that you're not going to have enough time for everything, the better. Remember, you have academics, you have your social life, and you have all the recruiting that is needed for your internship and jobs. Like, you're going to run out of time. Like, there will be times where you need to prioritize things. There are going to be times where you're not going to give 100% for everything at the same time. But then that's okay, because everyone else is going through that process, and you're all stressing out together. You're all going to find success together. And in some ways, you're going to be able to find comfort with each other, because everyone's on that journey. So just understand that at one point, prioritization is going to be the key. And the smarter you are about it, the better it is for everyone.
That's awesome. Thank you, Fitz.
I can go. Good.
No, go ahead. I was waiting.
Okay, well, I was just going to say that, kind of back to Danny's point before, I would just encourage, you know, maybe the one thing that I would say is I wish I had done more of that kind of proactive, you know, reaching out to people outside of my program as well. So kind of getting involved with the Owen community as a whole. So don't like limit yourself to, you know, whether you're an MBA or MSF or marketing student. I would strongly suggest, you know, that you kind of go out and, you know, go outside of your comfort zone and you know, reach out to people outside of your circle, and you know, kind of start that early so that you have more time to get to know these people and to kind of build relationships. You know, I did that to a certain extent, but I wish I had started it earlier, just because I only had, you know, 10 months at Owen. So by the time I was, you know, starting to get comfortable with people outside of my circle, you know, it was time for me to graduate. So I would encourage, you know, everybody to do that early on, and you know, I'm sure it'll pay off, because it did for me, even over a very short period of time. But that's probably the one thing that I would highlight for you guys.
I would like to share two things. Like, first, I think that you talk to people talk to as many people as possible, but like you have to be very strategically, because like time, as Fitz said, like you have so many things to prioritize. But what I want to highlight about talking to as many people as possible is that I think sometimes like it's really about information exchange. I just realized there after graduation, I just noticed there are so many different opportunities that you know, the other people who are international students as well and end up doing. And I was just so amazed by how they get this job and how was the journey for them. I was like in a silo actually at Owen, even though I think we have so many resources, but I think, again, like talking to people from other schools, talking to people who have graduated, I think their information probably could give you like some very different opportunities. Second, I would say fail fast. I feel like a lot of people come here with excellent, excellent like previous experience, and you had so much achievement. But here, I think the MBA program, you probably will fail in many ways. For example, like 40 people compete for this job and only 2 get this offer, right? That like if you see this as a failure, then you should like really think to those experiences. So because you know that you fail fast, you can move on to the next great opportunity. And yeah, I think just value those experiences rather than just like think that I failed this. Probably will be really beneficial for your own experience in the program.
That's great. Perfect. Thank you all. We really appreciate you all taking your time. And those of you listening, if you would use the chat box and express your gratitude to our panelists. They're busy. As you are hearing, a lot of them are doing this in the middle of jobs and their work. So if you would, please express your gratitude for their taking time. As we're wrapping up, one thing I'll say, one of the main reasons that we do this is so that you can get a sense of how awesome our alums are and how great people are in other programs, different programs. So I hope this gives you all the more motivation to be thinking and finding those people, to be reaching out, to be hearing those other perspectives, and to keep learning from other people. One of my favorite parts about Owen is the community. So I'm so thankful for all of that. Let's see. We're about to sign off. I think lunch is coming up next for a lot of you. I'm going to stick around for a little while in case anybody has any last questions. Morgan, is there anything else we need to keep in mind with what comes next?
Nope, I'm going to be posting the schedule link now in the chat. So if anyone wants to find the links for the lunch sessions, they'll be there. Next session after that is going to be the History of Owen session at 1:30.
Great. Excellent.
Thank you so much.
Thank you again to our panelists, and the rest of you. I hope you have a wonderful lunch.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.